I really enjoy the fact that Recreators is not afraid to throw a lot of information and build up the world, explain the fundamentals, why everything is happening the way it is before jumping into a lot of action. There has been some action here or there, but at the core, these past 4 episodes have not been that action-oriented, and a series and a setting and just the overall idea of what this type of series is going for, most series wouldn't have got to even major info dumping until like episode 5 or 6, to be 100% honest. And the fact that Recreators is saying, you know what, anime fans, you have a brain, you have an attention span, I have trust that you're willing to listen to information and have enjoyment that isn't just revolved around flashy colors and big explosions. I have to commend this team. I have to commend the fact that Recreators is giving us the information and not just saying we have to have sword fights, we have to have explosions, we have to have this magical girl always blowing up the building for it to be intriguing. I absolutely love Recreators. It's been one of my favorite series of the season since it started, and it's continuing on the bright path that it started out on. This is going to be a tremendous series. There's 2 main things I want to discuss with this episode. The first thing is something I didn't even really think of, but what if one of these characters couldn't meet their creator because their creator died? And it's a really interesting concept because you have to think about it. Well, if the creator's dead, the story can't continue. Unless, because it seems like this one character was based off an actual video game, so the game was a more or less like concluded story in a sense, but it raises the question like, what if you do stop a point? Because it seems like, from what we know, we don't know exactly how it's all based off of, but we do know that if you're adapted from a light novel, if you're adapted from, like, or if you're created from the light novel, if you're created for, like, the video game, whatever it is, it's different from another story that's identical story, but, like, from a different medium. If you're from the anime, you're different from the light novel. But what happens if that story stops and doesn't get finished because the creator dies? And it raises the question, if someone, because it does seem like it has to have a public reception, like, it can't just be the creator writes in a story and draws an image, it has to be received by the public, so it seems like it has to actually be published. So what if someone took up the creator's mantle and continued the story and published the next work? Would that continue the story, or would that not work? And that's the type of questions that it raises, and I'm sure things like this could get answered later in the series. But this is why I like Recreators. It brings up the question, well, if the creator dies, if someone takes his place and publishes the next work, would that continue the story? Would it create a different story? How does it work with the mechanics that are at play? I absolutely love that concept, and seeing a character not know what to really feel like their creator is dead, so instead she decides to play the work and experience and figure out, who was my creator? Was he someone who hated his world? Did he care about his world? What type of person was he? And she ultimately realizes that her creator did care. Like, there's so much detail in her world, little things that most people would never notice, and ultimately she's happy that her creator made her world. And I love seeing that. It's something that's so simplistic, it's so basic. Some people might brush that off as being like, oh, it's so boring, not much is happening, it's just someone talking. But it's kind of emotional, seeing someone who can't meet essentially their parents, the one who created them, but kind of has this like affection for him because she sees, you know, I stayed up all night playing this game, and I'm actually, like, really, really happy that my creator made such a detailed world, and I really like things like that. But on the flip side, we get to see that the more characters that come into the human world, the more of a tariff that this is essentially created. There's an imbalance of power, different characters from different types of world that don't match this world that they're in. They're from, you know, magical girl worlds, or they're from, you know, medieval times. Having all these individual characters reside in the central hub world of where all creations begin, essentially is going to break the world and break the fundamentals that this world is based on, to the point that basically they have to figure out why the hell this girl is bringing everyone into this world, what is ultimately their plan, and essentially it relates to we need to find their creator. We're probably all thinking it, that, you know, Glasses Man himself is probably her creator. More than likely that, you know, the drawings that he was working on that he doesn't want to show people probably relates in some way or something like that. Like, I mean, the main character, like, they're gonna go cliche in some way. They're gonna go typical in some way. If they don't, I would be shocked. But I think it's pretty much clear that, you know, the main character, the guy with the glasses, I forget his name, forgive me, but essentially he's probably in some relation to the creation that is causing all of the mayhem that is happening here. But this is why I like this series. Like, it does have some traditional sides to the anime. It's doing a lot of things that a lot of anime are afraid to do. They think anime fans just want to see actions, they want to see explosions, but instead they're saying, if a character really was brought into this world, they would ask questions. They would have some sort of emotion like, why was I brought here? What would happen if you were adapted from the light novel and not the anime? there's so many of these questions that get brought up each week, and this is keeping me interested. They could have absolutely no action in just this type of philosophy, and I'm down for it. But we know we're gonna have some more action. We've seen we've had little tastes of what the action is gonna bring, but I'm not expecting heavy action for another few episodes, like maybe halfway down the series, because this is building up everything. It's kind of like the calm before the storm, and I'm absolutely loving it for that. I mean, the animation, I think this was probably the weakest animation and art style for the episodes that we've seen so far, but based on the fact it was more of a sitting around episode, not too much like crazy, you know, flashy colors or anything like that, to have this be the dip in the quality, that's perfectly acceptable in my eyes. I mean, save up your like production time for some of the more flashier scenes so they don't look kind of unfinished and unpolished. So to have an episode that kind of just had some weird mouth movements, facial expressions, and just overall average art style, that's perfectly fine to me. I thought this was a great episode. Not too much that I want to dive into this week, but I absolutely love this. I know there's going to be some people trying to say like, oh, all this info dumping is boring. Completely disagree. I absolutely love it, and I love the fact that this anime is not afraid to say you don't need action to be interesting, and I love anime that take that risk. I can't wait for episode 5 next week, and I'd be interested to hear what everyone think of this episode. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or do you think it was just okay? Before you leave, please be sure to like the video to show your support. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.